Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's IEP LiveLearnLunch. We're really excited today to be joined by Louise McMahon, the Head of Strategy and Business Improvement at Kier Highways, who's going to be taking us through today's session. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Louise.
Thank you, Helen. Morning, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen, and if Helen could just give me a yes that you can see that in one moment, that would be wonderful. See that, Helen?
Yes, it's just come up now. Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, so I'm going to switch my camera off in a moment after I've done my introductions, just so my face isn't like this. But first of all, good afternoon, and thanks again to the IEP for inviting me along to share and hopefully enable you to learn something about collaboration in terms of thinking tomorrow, today, a new era of collaboration. So I'm just going to flick over to the next slide to let you know who I am in terms of what I actually do. So I'm Head of Strategy and Business Improvement for Kier Group, but within the Highways division. And my main part of my role is, as my title says, to focus on our strategic ambitions being realised over the next 3 to 5 years. But I am and do remain passionate about collaboration, excuse me, and also support both internally and externally our drive towards working better together with our supply chain and our clients and our customers in how we can do things differently to deliver faster and better, and also align to our strategic imperatives and also theirs. I'm also an advisory council member for the Institute of Collaborative Working in London, who are the advocates for collaborative working all round, with a lot of other industry members, of which we are a corporate member. So I'm going to move on and switch my screen to no video, just so you, again, don't see my nose up against, and hopefully you'll enjoy the content, but please do share any questions in the chat bar and I'll hopefully come to those at the end. And this slide deck can be shared via the IEP if you request it. So thank you. I'm just going to move on if my screen works. Okay, so just a whistle-stop tour, and you'll see against most of my slides that there is some detail which is quite heavy, but I'm not going to touch on everything. It's just high level, and like I say, the slides can be shared afterwards so you can read more at your leisure. So our purpose as Kier is to sustainably deliver infrastructure which is vital to the UK, and we're a leading provider of services across the business units that you can see on screen. We've got construction, infrastructure, highways, which I remain part of, utilities and property. And our core fundamental foundation for delivery across our strategic actions are our building blocks, which you see here on screen. So these are what which underpin our strategic ambitions, are supported by relevant deliverables, and of which collaboration sits across all of these building blocks for both our business at highways level and across all of the business functions you can see here. Just some fast facts, and again, as I mentioned, I'm not going to go through all of these. 78% of our Kier's UK revenue is from our subcontracted supply chain. So more so as an organisation across all of our business functions, we strive to collaborate well, whether on an informal or formal contractual basis, to ensure we're delivering well, and we're delivering well together for the UK economy and the UK's infrastructure. Our values are collaborative, trusted and focused, which underpin our culture and who we are and what our people do, our greatest asset, and particularly focused on collaboration, which I've just mentioned. That is both internally and externally focused and will continue to be part of our core foundation and our core culture as a business. So the what are we here to talk about? Collaboration. As you can see on screen, there's a definition from Google. There's many definitions about collaboration, but in essence, collaboration is not working alone, not just doing transactional activities, but 2 or more people working together in a team, and one team, and not multiple teams, but acting as one team, working together in terms of what you're there to deliver, which links into a shared goal, a common purpose, what you can't do as an individual or an individual organisation. So bringing this into present day and giving some broad examples, there's lots out there, but I've just picked a handful from research that I've been part of, or research that's available on the wide web. So we've all been through COVID, and I think we all realised during that time, whether it was on a personal or professional basis, that we all had to adapt, we all had to work differently, and predominantly collaboration was the core focus to enable organisations to sustain throughout the period of COVID. So for us as an organisation and our wider delivery partners, which we mentioned earlier, we all drew together to see what each other had in terms of protective equipment, materials, resource to enable us to continue to deliver through such a changing time during COVID, where we still had to deliver because of the safety of our infrastructure and our highways business and our customers and such as you travelling on the roads. So we all worked together to adapt our business model. As it says, 68% of organisations did that and continue to do that post-COVID, to enable them to be more resilient in their supply chain, collaborate stronger with their suppliers faster without question, and also improve kind of that environment, the social and economic performance for now, post-COVID, and moving forward in case of any other pandemic that might occur, which we wouldn't expect, and to be more resilient in challenging that environment and moving forward with sustained delivery. Again, one of the key things I'd like to pick out of this for the audience that I'm presenting is that collaboration remains in the top 4 important skills for employees for future success. We all collaborate naturally as children on the playground. We don't know people, we start talking to them, and that happens naturally, and we work together to create a game and imagine different ways of playing on that playground. And then as we grow older, we seem to forget that we're able to do that naturally, because in the commercial world, in a business environment, we become afraid to work together because of that intellectual property right and commercial sensitivity. But there are ways to work together to resolve our biggest industry challenges when there's a common goal that you have, what you can resolve together. But the why, for me, it's always why not? Because what is there to lose? If you've got something that can be resolved together, go for it. Don't be afraid. There's always contractual regulations that can kind of put those safety buffers in place if you want them there. But the question for me is always, why not? Because when there's 2 of you with a small idea, you come together as a team, as a bigger idea and a bigger opportunity as a team, not just your organisation with your partners and wider delivery network, to create and resolve those industry challenges that I've mentioned. Here is just an overview of where we as the business and our wider supply chain and clients have come from, where in the past we're receiving work from National Highways, known as Highways England previously, and then we're a provider who are then distributing the work down our supply chain or delivery teams. Now, when we're delivering a contract, we come together as one team to discuss our common approach, our behaviours, and our strategic, but also more importantly, our relationship objectives to collaborate together. And as it says on screen, collaboration and partnership are fundamental to the success of any sector, not just your sector, not just my sector, any sector. So what? Within your sector, in terms of research that I was undertaking pre this presentation, obviously the external factors that you need to consider within your sector over the next 15 years are displayed on screen. But can you do that alone? Probably not, because there's multiple different external barriers that you need to get through. There's different government regulation, there's different objectives that you all have as individuals and also organisations, but these are all barriers or even opportunities that is beyond one organisation's control to influence. So you need to come together to consider how you can develop new pathways for employability professionals, service delivery, sharing that, having it in one place, co-location, whether that's remote, virtual, or actually physically in an office, blending funding sources, drawing on and leveraging different parts of your organisation and wider with those you work with, and also integrating that employability and skills provision to resolve or focus on the opportunities that you have over the next 15 years. So how? I will give you actually tangible outcomes in the how as a case study as I work through. But for now, ask yourselves as an industry and also individuals, if you're developing any projects within internally or externally focused, how can you collaborate? Is there an opportunity to work together in a different way rather than saying, this is what you're there to do and not what we are here to do, because that changes the dynamics so much. And I've seen that happen on our projects. And also I've seen this, which I'll demonstrate in a moment through the case study I'll provide, working with our wider supply chain in developing collaborative extended enterprises. But the main thing that underpins all of this is it's not just transactional. It's, as I said at the beginning, what can you do together that you can't do alone? What are your biggest industry challenges that you need to work on for both the sustainability of your organizations, but also for the sustainability of your end user, your end customer, those people that you're supporting through any employability route or journey or learning? What can you do together? And what is your common goal? Because without one, it is just a transaction, it is business as usual. But where you have a common goal, which you all have, which is about creating opportunities and changing lives for the better, that is more so the reason, your business case, for start looking at how you can work differently moving forward. In all of this, in all the examples that I ever use, or in any project, or in any partnership, extended enterprise, or alliance that I support delivery and creation of with those involved together, that's the key thing, together, is behaviours. So again, in any walks of life, personal or professional, I, as I'm sure you do, expect trust and respect with those I come into contact with or those that I am working with in any guise. These are what are supportive of developing any relationship, professional relationship, whether again it's under a formal basis using the principles of ISO 44001, collaborative working standard, of which I continue to advocate and continue to draw down the principles into informal and formal ways of working together with our internal and external networks, because it provides a framework that enables you to see what's required, which is some of the parts I'm touching on now, where it all starts with a willingness to be involved in working together, top management support, because without that, it's not going to continue to spread and have success, and behaviours, which all these on screen, and there's many more that you could determine of what's important within your relationship, develop that trust and respect, which strengthens the relationship, which accelerates your performance in delivery, because you all know what to expect from each other and what you're there to deliver as that common goal. And then also those future opportunities, whether it's as that same team or standalone working on innovation or other opportunities that has been determined during that relationship life cycle. And as you all know, and I mentioned at the beginning in terms of when we were all children and we collaborated naturally, that collaboration is human. It's about us and what we do, how we behave, how we speak to each other, how we support those around us. It's not about a collaborative tool. Teams is great because I can speak to you today remotely, but again, human interaction, activity, engagement, behaviours mean good collaboration will enable success in whatever you're there to deliver together. So again, I mentioned I was going to bring the case study to life with one case study. I have done many. I've been working in developing internal and external collaborative alliances, partnerships for the last 3.5 years now. And the longer I become involved in developing these relationships, the more I learn. I think, oh, we'll just do it the same as we did last time, but actually you don't. You start from the beginning, you forget for then what you've developed, and start with all the people in the room, what you want to do and how you want to do it, and then draw over your lessons learned from the previous relationships I've supported, from the previous systems and processes we've set up. And you make it humanistic, you make it embedded into what you do, not a stand outside and you just link back to it. You embed it into what you do and how you work together. So the one case study I'm going to use, and there are others I can share with you through examples if you want to get in touch from my contact details or via the IEP, is the extended enterprise model, which is underpinned, as I mentioned, by the framework of ISO 44001. And it also links to, if you have heard of it, Project 13, which is built upon the principles of the 5 pillars to the left-hand side of the screen. It might be right on yours. And it's based on all the things I've said about capable owner, top management support, governance, having good governance in place, who's doing what, who can make the decisions, who can resolve the disputes at that corporate level within that setup of governance that you've created for the enterprise, not a standalone organisation, the enterprise, one team. How can you integrate as one team? And what does that look like? How are you going to share? What are you going to hold your data on? Where is it going to be? Who has access? The organisations coming together and leveraging those resources and shared knowledge and insights, and digital transformation. So integrating what you have, your tools, your planning applications, your designs into one place that everyone sees and who's part of that enterprise. This was involving 8 partners who you can see their logos on screen, more particularly picking out, not that they're more important than anybody within this partnership, but Highways England, now National Highways. They were obviously the ones who procured the work. It was the Regional Delivery Partnership, and this case study was based on the North. There were 13 regions allocated with various partners made up within each of those, but this is the North that I supported developing their North Regional Delivery Partnership. And as you can see to the right-hand side, that logo was created to demonstrate they are one team, not 8 organisations, and that is what they continue to use as part of that communication in what they do and how they do it, whether it be at internal level or external level. So this is a very, let's move back up a step. This is a very quick whistle stop of the end-to-end journey that we started in December 2019 pre-COVID, and then we had to kind of halt because delivery was more important and the safety of those who work on our network or travel on our network into April of this year. So as I mentioned, we started with 8 partners, 8 organisations who were part of the North RDP delivery, and we decided that we wanted to adopt the ISO 44001 framework, including route to external certification via BSI. And that route certification wasn't to tick a box, because I never would support a journey just to tick a box. They wanted to undertake it to mature their relationship for now, and also part of their extended enterprise journey up to 2024 to be fully enterprise ready. And I'll explain more about that in a moment. Then we had a joint discovery session between March to May, and all of this journey, apart from one meeting, was done over Teams. And you think, well, how can you develop relationships over Teams? Well, we did. And actually, because we had the opportunity to meet more often and more regularly, it made the strength in our journey even better, because we were all doing it while we were stuck at home during COVID. It kind of gave us that drivers to push it forward faster. And we did, and successfully in April of this year. Not only were we high performing within the North RDP, and I say we because I was part of that journey until I stepped out into other projects, we were then also certified by BSI in the April 2021. And all of that was underpinned by documents and management systems demonstrating how we do it, what does it mean, and also where we're going in terms of future KPIs and deliverables, of which, like I mentioned, was built into the North RDP ways of working. It wasn't something standalone. And it took 125 hours in total, which doesn't sound that much. It does when you're undertaking it, because collaboration isn't easy. I'd be lying if I said it is, but I have been fortunate, and I truly believe that I've experienced no barriers, because the people that I work with, as I said at the beginning, we all come into a room, virtual room or in-person meeting, and we set out what do we want to achieve together, and then build those ways of working together with all voices being equal, no matter if it's the client or if it's supply chain tier 1, 2, 3, band A, band B. We all come together to discuss how we want to do it, and then develop that management system together, which gains the engagement of the people. It enables you to understand what you're there all to deliver together, so there's no kind of misunderstanding. And then you have your own joint vision and objectives. The key things that we've always found when we're developing collaborative ways of working on, again, informal or formal basis, is understanding from the very beginning, what are you going to share? So as you can see on screen, this is still within the North RDP. We undertake an exercise where individually the organisations complete this tool or the sheet, with green being we'll share everything, red we won't because of obviously that commercial sensitivity, and amber, we don't want to share it now, not everything, but this is part of that review cycle where on an annual basis they'd open this up and say, do we want to change what we're sharing with each other, because you're developing that trust within the partnership. So at the very beginning, we discuss what we're going to share and how we're going to behave. And they're the key fundamental things, inclusive of the governance of who's going to support all of this and how we're going to do it and how often we're going to meet and how often we're going to communicate. Behaviours I touched on within the circle diagram earlier. Within the North RDP, they chose to adopt the National Highways Improving Behaviours, Improving Performance Model, which you can see on screen as an extract of their behaviours. This model is the best model that I've seen. It's in relation to behaviours not just being agreed, but behaviours which are observed. And they train up coaches, IBIP coaches, and this is part of when the contract award goes live, and National Highways support this activity in allocating through discussion who within those 8 partners in the North RDP can support resource who can become trained IBIP coaches. And by that, those IBIP coaches not only engage in the delivery of the contract fundamentals and the Extended Enterprise Partnership goal, but they observe as part of virtual or in-person meetings, are they demonstrating these behaviours? If there's areas to highlight that is of a weakness or needs more improvement, whether it's an individual or team as a whole within the North, then an action plan is created by this IBIP coach. And then that action plan is then managed and owned by the North RDP top management leads. And then moving on from that, they then form part of the behaviours and that demonstrated activity and action plans being developed, undertaken, reviewed and completed as part of their league table performance. The North Regional Delivery Partnership as part of their commitment when working together, and this is quite common practice, again, formal or informal, that you develop something that demonstrates to yourselves and your wider stakeholders and external communication to the wider people who are supporting your contract delivery, what you're there to do together. So as you can see, it gives the overview of who they are in the first paragraph, the core value drivers, what they're there to deliver together, and then leading into the governance, how they're going to develop and track and manage those activities through task and finish groups and regional centre of excellence, how they'll continue to share and learn with the other 12 RDP regions what they do and how they do it, whether it's on a collaborative basis or performance basis. And then this is then supported by the Senior Executive Responsible, which is the 44,001 language, which is basically saying Tim of National Highways was chosen through discussion and volunteered to take the lead to lead on behalf of all the partners within the RDP, the lead as the head of collaborative working, and then that's annually rotated for others through conversation to volunteer to take that lead up and put their stance on any change going forward as well. But it still remains a very much a collaborative team as the North RDP. The last thing in this case study is what I've just touched on in terms of performance. So when you're working together in this environment, developing collaborative ways of working, collaborative systems, common goals, common outputs, it does accelerate project startup and also accelerated performance and sustained improvement in performance as well. So this is what I've got on the screen is an extract from the Regional Delivery Partnership Performance League Table. And this is what I've mentioned. If you look up to the top right in terms of industry leading enterprise ready by 2024. And this is what they on a quarterly basis discuss with all 13 RDP regions, of which I don't know how many in total supply chain partners are within each of those, but within ours, we have continually moved from where we were at 18 and we sit in this upper quartile of the collaborative improvement zone, moving into enterprise ready. And it probably has moved up from there actually, because this was the last quarter earlier in this year. And that has demonstrated through discussion with the North RDP leads that they believe that their performance is because at the very outset they discussed how they were going to do it and the route to ISO 44 to validate and certify their journey to being enterprise ready. And this, again, in terms of performance, is underpinned by, up the left-hand side is the behaviours that I've mentioned, which are the soft targets, you know, the coaching, is it demonstrated, are you engaged? And then across the bottom is delivery in terms of those hard contractual requirements under the National Highways imperatives of safety, customer and delivery. And without these two being achieved, you can't be good at behaviours and rubbish at delivery and expect to move up. You have to demonstrate behaviours and you have to demonstrate delivery to move up the swoosh, as we call it, into the upper quartile. And that demonstrates to the people that they can't just deliver. They also have to work together and demonstrate those behaviours nonetheless. So benefits, I've touched on a few as I've been talking through the slide deck, but particularly what we've kind of accessed and recorded through our examples of collaborative working, and I'm sorry this won't move back up, is we've shared obviously through collaborative working behaviours, resources, goals, risks and rewards. But an example of that in terms of shared resources, when we as Kier bid for a contract, predominantly now they do ask for ISO 44001 to have it as an organisation, but to also support once the contract goes live, and if you're awarded part of that multiple award contract, such as the RDP, that you support the creation of and development of a collaborative management system. So I have, for the last 3.5 years, I've mentioned, done this. When we are awarded a contract, I not only supported the North RDP 8 partners in creation of their ways of working and certification, but straight after, well, running in parallel actually, into the May, I was supporting National Highways Contract Area Regional Investment Programme North in developing their standalone national highways ways of working, because they see it's a step change in, they ask all the people who are delivering work on behalf of national highways to have ISO 44001, as well as many other requirements as a criteria for award. So as part of that step change, they themselves, because they didn't have it as RIP North, undertook that same journey. But because they'd gone through the journey within the North RDP ways of working creation, that transfer of knowledge into developing their own, you'd think would have been easy, but it's not, because when you're developing partnerships, you're thinking of it as a standalone entity. Nobody really owns but your one team, and you create your ways of working in that respect. When it's a standalone organisation, such as if it was the IEP, for example, you're creating your system based on you as the IEP and what you do and how you want to work with others and why you'd want to work with others. So it is a little bit different in terms of a shift in thinking. But nonetheless, they also, within the 6 weeks it took end to end to develop their ways of working because of that transfer of knowledge, they also were successfully certified to ISO 44 as well, which was the first for RIP North. They've never had that before. So it was a very proud moment in many respects. And then linking to the outcome, which I've just mentioned about sharing of knowledge and increased trust from behaviours, you get the accelerated performance, you get faster startup and delivery, and it draws down that kind of innovative opportunities and future opportunities for work because you're demonstrating you're good to work with in the first place. There's also the external award and recognition, in terms of the area 9 and 3 ways of working that I supported a few years ago. There's many other awards that we've received. You get external recognition, which is a great, proud moment, and you also gain the certification as well, as I've mentioned, under British Standard ISO 44001. So not only is it self-gratification and pride, it's also great to share these insights, which I'm doing with you today, how you can do things differently. The top 5 takeaways in terms of me today, but there might be others that you've hopefully gained from this short presentation, is top management sponsorship is key. Like I've mentioned, you can't do anything unless everyone's engaged, and that's not just within the organisation where you work, it's the organisation of those that you're working with on your common goal. Behaviour is 100% the key to success and lead to the trust being developed and that relationship being strengthened. Agree the ways of working together. Don't say, oh, look what I've done, and force it upon people, because that's not collaboration. It's purely everyone on the same page, one voice, one team. And then take your time, focus on key parts and everything at once. So identify your barriers or your industry challenges, identify who could support resolving that. Have they got the same common goals and barriers? And then start to work together to develop that through either a relationship management plan. There's short, light touch versions I can also share if you're interested. And there's other ways to do it in terms of presentation and the fuller kind of remit that I've taken snippets from the RDP. There's loads of ways to do it, but the key thing is do what is right for all of you, not just one or two of you. And then use the principles of ISO 44 to guide you through the process. I wouldn't advise reading the ISO standard. It's much like any other ISO standards until you've been through the end-to-end journey and seen how the ISO fits to your business and not the other way around. Then that makes more sense, because you're not trying to adapt something. You're actually undertaking and aligning the standard to your business. Within the deck, there is some key links that I'll share via Helen within the pack, so you can hover over these and pick these up if you wish, and some links to the Project 13 Enterprise Model and BSI if you wish to know more about them too. So the last thing I'll just leave you with is no one of us is as smart as all of us, of which you hopefully agree, because for me, it's always been a fundamental part of my life, personally and professionally. And then any questions from you?
I was on mute then. Hello. We're just waiting for any questions to come in. So for those of you who are joining us on the session, please do feel free to pop some questions into the chat, or you can raise your hands and switch your video on and ask them direct to Lou if you would like to.
Kick off, Helen. I have many questions.
Yes, I was going to, but I'll let you, Teresa.
Oh, no, you go first if you've got one.
So one of the questions I had was thinking about the 5 takeaways at the end, and you sort of talked about the importance of top management down, and I completely understand that. So for those on the session who maybe aren't top management, how can they go about convincing the powers that be that it might be a good thing to do? Because it's quite scary, isn't it, to take that step and say, we're going to share all that information. I found that knowledge sheet that you just showed. I'm working on a project at the moment. I'm like, I need to use that with this group, because I need clarity on what they will share and know when I need to have conversations. So how do we go about convincing people to be brave?
Well, hopefully your culture is much like ours. No matter which role you play within the organisation or where in the org chart you sit, you have a voice and you are still employed and have every right to pose the question. I suppose it's posing the question and pitching it at the right level, like an elevator pitch. For me, I don't just do it if we have a contract. If I'm running a project, like some of the people on the call might individually have projects assigned to them at any level, is proposing a way of doing it differently. And if you propose a way of doing things differently, a bit like the lean techniques, is what did we get before when we did it in the other way? And what do we get out of it if we work collaboratively, and outline all of the key things like we just said, roles and responsibilities, how we're going to work together, what are our key goals, risks and rewards, etc., etc. And then do that kind of gap analysis of what it gave you, then benefits realized, and then take that to their manager and say, actually working this way has given us X, Y, Z than what we had before. And it's opened up new avenues to this, that, and the other. And just simplify it down, because like I say, collaboration is not easy in terms of getting people on board sometimes, but I've whether been fortunate or lucky or something, but out of all the people I've ever worked with, even when I was doing it with 75 people and 24 organizations, is if you all sit down and discuss it openly, what you want to do, the kind of barriers, whether it's internally to promote that way of working, shouldn't be it should be a no-brainer, really. It shouldn't be well, do me a 15-page business case then. It should be just a 1-page view of this is what we used to do, and this is what we propose to do now, and this is what it's going to give us. Just keep it.
Absolutely agree with that. Nobody needs to overcomplicate it, because that does make it a slower process and it turns people off.
Yeah, definitely.
I love all of your graphics because everything is really straightforward and simple. And then, you get the buy-in of absolutely everybody, which is what you need. My question was, how much time pre-contract launch do you typically have on setting up a program that you've just outlined for your Northern Partnership? How much time pre-tender stage and then pre-contract live stage, please?
At the point of where we as a business decide for the right reasons we're going to bid for some work, whether it's national highways, local highways, other, it doesn't matter who the client is, it's the reason we're bidding. If it mentions ISO 44001 requirements, or even if it doesn't mention ISO particularly, but collaborative requirements and culture and what it means, I'm always contacted by our work winning team to support discussion, first of all, of examples that I've recently done or previously done, and then I'll shape the content with them and other people who are professionals in collaboration across our business to support demonstrating simplistically, but with kind of emphasis, what we do differently and what it means in terms of that go live stage. And then once that's then awarded, I'll be contacted by the relevant contract lead to be drawn into that kind of initial discussion, pre-spade in the ground, if you wish, to talk about what they want to do, because you've got to remember that I'm a facilitative role. I'm not there to say, oh, I've done all this lovely stuff before, but I do take and hold all the transfer of knowledge and different ways of doing things and keep it simple. I'd never really mention ISO 44 ever, because we're doing it without them knowing it. And when we get to the end, they realise they've worked through all the principles of the standard. And then obviously we then start developing, well, let's have a kickoff workshop, discovery workshop, and then I facilitate all of that and capture everything. And then all of a sudden, without them realising, because they feel like, oh my God, it's taking forever, they've got a relationship management plan and it's all set up and all integrated and ready. And then we just continue to do it in stages, because if you try and do this in one go, it's too much of a headspace to take up. But obviously National Highways, as part of that RDP example, they themselves, as part of the first 100-day startup, actually do the behavioural assessments of each organisation, all the individuals, and then they link it into that collaborative aspects that they want and are fundamental to the success of delivery of the contract, whether they use ISO 44 or not. So it's kind of a two-arm to the whole process.
That's really interesting. I think that it's possible that the department of government that you contract with is probably slightly more advanced than the department of government we contract with in our industry, because they want collaboration. They are desperate for better a more effective collaboration, but they haven't got to the stage where they're asking for 44,001, which would be really helpful, because that would give the framework to people to work to.
Definitely.
I have no questions at the moment. They're being shy, Lou. We have no questions at the moment. So we'll give people just a little bit longer to raise their hands or to pop something in the chat. I suspect they're all waiting for the slides to be sent out now that you've kindly offered to share those. As I say, I shall definitely be copying your spreadsheet on knowledge sharing. That's definitely one that I can see will be very useful for me at the moment.
I think absolutely that would be something that I want to know more about. And is there a shared system? Is there a shared, because we have a problem in our industry of everybody using different systems. Many people have their own bespoke systems, but if there was one key system that worked with everybody, that would be brilliant.
For the collaborative activities I've supported, we've done multiple different ways of sharing the kind of insights as to what we do, how we do it, and like kind of the key documentation for everyone to pick up on, inclusive of like a monthly or quarterly information pack of how we're progressing for everyone involved to kind of cascade down their organisations as well. But for the North RDP, they chose Microsoft Teams and had it all set up in just simplistic folders, how we work, what we do, here's the performance, here's the comms and cascade that you need to pick up. For the strategic road network that I supported a few years ago, we use SharePoint, but both of the tools obviously are Microsoft, but the key thing is everyone who's in the partnership has got access to everything. So there aren't closed off folders because that's not the point of collaboration. If it's anything sensitive, it shouldn't be going into that ways of working together system. But you can do it in many different ways. I know organizations who just use Microsoft Share, folder share, and they haven't got some fancy links to system or anything other. They just keep it simple because simple sometimes makes it more effective.
And I think that exercise of being really clear on what you're going to be sharing makes it easier, because often with a collaboration project, you're told to go away and collaborate, but then you're not the person who's made the decision. So there's confusion on, I know I've been in situations where I've been like, can I say this, or do I need to check before I say this? So having something laid out where I know exactly what I can talk about and what I shouldn't talk about would make it so much easier to go into the collaboration 100% and be comfortable with it.
Definitely. Like I say, it's key to understanding what you're all there to do together and what you can talk about, or how you're going to resolve issues and disputes, with which working in this way openly actually resolves disputes a lot faster, because you all feel like you can talk to each other as friends, so to speak, while there's still that professional layer there. And one thing that I was going to mention just in terms of the audience is, when I either myself or share the knowledge of how you can work differently with people. In fact, I'll bring this to life. I saw my colleague Lisa from National Highways, who I worked with when I first joined Kier on my biggest collaboration, which is the 75 people and 24 organisations. And I then went on to support them directly in developing their management system as National Highways. And at the time, we were working through the ISO standard and building their system, because you have to do that when you're working on developing the system itself. And they're like, oh my God, this is so hard. I just don't get it. It's like so hard. I went, just bear with it. We're going to go from clause 4 to clause 10, 10 to 4, 4 to 10, 4 to 8. And we're just going to work through it and continue to do it. And then at the very end, we'll work through it from start to finish. And I promise it'll drop into place what this means. And I saw Lisa the other day and she went, I can still remember that conversation. And it 100%, you was right. And still today, I still use all of your collaborative tools and techniques and ways of working in what I do with our wider supply chain. And your transfer of knowledge has aided my improvement, both as a personal and professional development, in how they look at working with other people as well. And that was quite like, oh, thanks, like proud moment.
It's so funny, because the Queen actually touched on that in her opening speech at COP. She basically called for everybody to put their differences aside across the world and work together to basically save the world, really. Yeah. And that's the most fundamental level that we need to work at now, because if we don't all do that, we really are in trouble. So it's an absolute must, I think. And I think that certainly the pandemic has probably helped people accelerate some of that stuff.
I agree. Definitely.
What a wonderful accolade that we can finish on, that Lou, you have been mentioned your behavioural and professional approach in the same sentence as Her Majesty. So it doesn't come better than that, does it? That you and Her Majesty are on the same wavelength when it comes to approaches to working. So I think that's a lovely place to finish. Thank you so much for today's session. I think it's been really, really useful. And as I've said many times already, I'll be picking that presentation apart myself and using some of those techniques with partners that I'm working with at the moment. So thank you very much. Thank you, Teresa, for coming and contributing as well. It's always wonderful to have you here. And as many of you will know, Teresa is one of our directors, as well as a fellow of the IEP. So it's always great to have her join us for a session.
And a huge supporter of collaborative working, and
definitely
the work that Louise has done, and certainly the work that the Institute does too.
Excellent. So it's something that we can all champion and move forward. That's brilliant. So thank you those of us who joined us today for the Live Learn Lunch. Next week, we've got something a little bit different for you. So I hope you'll all join me again. We actually have the Home Office joining us next week. And they will be talking to us about the points-based immigration system and the status of EU citizens. So it's going to be an introductory session to help us explore some of the things that can be useful to know, such as an introduction to the system, skilled worker visas, other immigration routes and right to work checks, all of those kind of things, and the support that's available for people. So that's going to be an interesting one. Please do come along for that. The following week, we have Society Matters joining us. And another of our fellows, Jane Graham, is going to be talking to us about volunteering. And the topic title is, "Isn't volunteering just getting unemployed people to work for nothing?" So that's going to be another fascinating session. And then the week after that, we will have a HR themed session, and I will be telling you more about that next week. So thank you all again for joining us today. Biggest thank you to Louise for joining us and giving us a great presentation, which I will be borrowing quotes from for quite some time. And thanks again to Teresa, and everyone have a wonderful week, and we will see you at the next Live Learn Lunch. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much, Louise. It's really interesting. And the beauty of taping it is that anybody can log in at any time and